Yes, yes, yes. It's Raphael Dawkins, Combat Radio. And if you have not subscribed already, please kindly hit the bell icons to stay updated. But anyway, let's get into it. The WBC president, Mauricio Sulaiman, fires back at top-rated heavyweight contender Dillian Whyte. Whyte, who holds the number one ranked position in the WBC, has been very vocal with his displeasure regarding the WBC not providing him with a mandatory shot against WBC world champion, the bronze bomber, Deontay Wilder. The British boxer Dillian Whyte will return to action on the 20th of July when he faces undefeated Olympian Oscar Rivas in London. Whyte has been riding the WBC hard, very, very hard, for several months after the sanctioning body passed him over and ordered a mandatory shot for the number 3 ranked Dominic Breazeale. So they passed over the number 1 ranked for the number 3 ranked. Wilder fought and brutally dispatched Breazeale last month in the first round at the Barclays Center, Brooklyn, New York. Sulaiman has reacted to Whyte's statements, claiming that he's not disclosing all of the facts. I have spoken at length with Eddie Hearn and Dillian Whyte's group, but unfortunately they have turned this into a media circus, which is highly regrettable because that influences the process. That influences the process? How does that influence the process? Shouldn't influence the process. The process should be the process. Anyway, Sulaiman said in an interview with Danny Flexen of Seconds Out, "We have the highest respect for Dillian Whyte. He's our number 1 contender, our silver champion, my friend, a tremendous fighter. But to be insulted over and over again makes it very difficult to continue addressing a situation." How does it make it difficult to address a situation when you're being insulted? Surely it makes it easier. Surely the facts can come out. But anyway, Sulaiman goes on to say, "We are going through a mediation process. But if they want to handle it through the press, that may change." How is that going to change? You're going through a mediation process, you go through a mediation process. How should it change if there's been words have been said in the press? It shouldn't change. That sounds highly unprofessional, Mr. Sulaiman. May I say, dare I say. Very, very peculiar indeed. We offered Dillian Whyte a fight for the interim championship since last October, and they've been stalling. I'm a bit frustrated that the British fans are only getting one side of the story. I've been getting insults on social media, trashing my father's reputation, insulting my family. We stand for justice. Our history is very clear, and we will do the just thing via the right process. Very, very interesting statements from the WBC El Presidente Mauricio Sulaiman. Okay, so my assessment of this thing. Dillian Whyte has been the number 1 ranked WBC fighter for something like 19 months. He's watched and waited while, first of all, he got passed over when the mandatory was called. He got passed over by Dominic Breazeale, we see here, who got flattened by Deontay Wilder within one round. Dominic Breazeale was number 3, Dillian Whyte number 1. at the time. And that was a very strange decision. People suspected that the reason for that decision was that Dominic Breazeale was the easier opponent for Deontay Wilder. Now, Deontay Wilder has a strong and long history of cherry picking, and Breazeale was seen as just another cherry in a long line of cherries. Before that, Deontay Wilder fought Luis Ortiz. Luis Ortiz was giving Deontay Wilder hell in the 7th round and came out in the 8th round empty. He'd blown his energy systems down. Ortiz is reputed to be 38 years old or 39 years old. Some people have him as high as 49 years old. His age is highly disputed. Luis Ortiz barely made it through the pre-fight medical and was spent by the 9th round. I believe he got knocked out. I think it was the 9th round. Anyway, so Dillian Whyte was the number 1 ranked opponent, and it should have been his shot. Instead, he got passed over for Dominic Breazeale. And since then, one would have imagined that Deontay Wilder, or rather Dillian Whyte, would have been Deontay Wilder's next mandatory, since Tyson Fury declined the WBC's invitation to be in a final eliminator with Dillian Whyte. You'd have thought Dillian Whyte would have been made mandatory then, but no. They tried to make another fight, tried to say he should fight Luis Ortiz, but that made no sense because Luis Ortiz had already had his crack at the champ and got knocked out. So that's the 3rd time, the 3rd opponent that tried to set up with Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte says he tried to make negotiations with Ortiz, but they weren't having it. And as we've seen lately or recently, when Anthony Joshua tried to make a fight with Luis Ortiz, they came out with all kinds of stories, said they were being lowballed and what have you, until Eddie Hearn threatened to expose them. And then the truth came out. They went on a big boxing show, with a big drama show, and said, no, sorry, we made a mistake. We weren't lowballed. Sorry, it was a misunderstanding. Our promoter misled us. So where does that leave us now? Seems like Ortiz will come out in the press, make all kinds of statements, but behind closed doors they won't accept fights outside of the PBC without the say-so of Al Heyman. So it's impossible, almost impossible for him, for Deontay, or rather Dillian, to make a fight with Ortiz. He's now fighting Rivas, trying to get the elimination spot, the immediate mandatory spot. The WBC have agreed to make it the final eliminator for Dillian Whyte. But Eddie Hearn is pressing that he should be the immediate mandatory since he's been waiting for 19 months, sitting in the number 1 spot for 19 months. How could anyone argue that Dillian Whyte should be the rightful mandatory? But now Mauricio Sulaiman is using strong-arm tactics, telling him he's got to be quiet. You better be quiet. You're embarrassing us. You're exposing us. You're exposing our folly. And we don't like that. So if you're not quiet, if you keep piping up, that will affect the process. If it affects the process, it affects your chances. Yes, we know you're number one. You've been number one for 18 months. But unlike most of Deontay Wilder's challengers, you are no cherry. It seems as if the WBC are protecting Deontay Wilder from a knockout puncher, a young knockout puncher. When was the last time Deontay Wilder fought a knockout puncher? A young, fit knockout artist. When was the last time that happened? Who also happens to be high ranking. Tyson Fury is not a knockout artist, despite what we saw against the low ranking Schwartz. Dominic Breezel, yeah, he gets battered. He can knock people out, but he gets battered first. With Deontay Wilder, you can't get battered first because he will knock you out. So he wasn't a threat. Who was before him? Oh yeah, Fury, not a knockout artist. Who was before him? Ortiz, yeah, very good fighter, but an old man. And before him was Stavern. Somebody been out of the ring for the better part of 2 years, 18 months. He'd been inactive. So he fought an inactive Stavern, then an old man Ortiz, then the non-knockout artist Fury, and then the knockout artist who gets battered first in Brazil. So Dillian Whyte will be the most dangerous opponent possibly in Deontay Wilder's whole career. And maybe one has to suspect that's the real reason why Deontay Wilder or Dillian Whyte sits waiting, has been waiting for 18 months. What say you? Or what say me? My final summary is that it's a tough one because they just don't want to give Dillian Whyte the shot. I think Dillian Whyte has to be calm, speak to his legal people, and come up with a strategy. Bite his tongue a little bit, just a little bit, but come up with a legal strategy to get the immediate mandatory. Otherwise, they'll just keep him waiting for 18 months, another 2 years. So that'll be 2 years plus 1.5 years, that'll be 3.5 years waiting. If he gets past the dangerous Oscar Rivas. I hope he gets through. I just hope he gets through. I wish him well. I hope he gets through because it would be great to see Deontay Wilder up against a young, top-ranked fighter who also happens to be a knockout artist. We need to see this fight. We really need to see this fight. All we can do is apply pressure via social media on the WBC. We have to keep the pressure on. We cannot let Deontay, some call him Decante, and the WBC, Mauricio, Sulaiman, get away with this. We have to keep the pressure on politely via social media and via content creators like myself. We need to see this fight. This is the fight we need to see. Forget about the others. Forget about other contenders for Deontay Wilder. This is the fight we need to see. A young, top-ranked knockout artist against the bronze bomber Deontay Wilder. It's Raphael Dawkins. Hit the bell icon. Like, subscribe, comment, share, and I'm out.